So, do you remember what test case is? It's a simple answer, yes or no. Do you remember what the test case is? I'm not asking you for a definition as of now. Okay. Do you remember what test plan is?
Yes.
Do you remember what are requirements?
Yes.
What is functional spec? Does it ring the bell? The functional specification, right? Okay. It's good that you remember that, because for the next 4 hours, I want you to do me a favor. Please pretend none of this exists.
Okay.
And this is just because Agile is very different from traditional software development methodology. And we'll go through the Agile process, software development and testing processes today. And I'll give you some basics. We will learn Agile on the example of Scrum, actually, which is one of the Agile methodologies. It is not the only one that you can use. There are others, but we will just use Scrum. It doesn't matter which one we use. We'll just use it to give you, I'll use it to give you an understanding how Agile development is done, why the Agile appeared, and how people manage it, and what does it mean for us testers to go through Agile development and testing process. And we'll also do a little exercise, which I promise will be fun. So let's start. And by the way, this presentation is not on Partnov's site yet. I will email it to you once we are done with the class. And it is not on a site for 2 reasons. One is pretty new. I keep updating it every few weeks. And second, if I have it posted on a website, then you guys will be distracted because you will be looking at the same presentation and scrolling back and forth, right? I do not want you to be distracted because for Agile, we only have 4 hours of presentation, right? So please stay focused. And so for today's class, okay, start on time. And I broke the rule because it's already 7:10. End on time. Please do not, turn off your cell phones, because I find this distractive for you, not for me. And if you want to discuss something, please raise your hand. I'll be happy to discuss. But keep one conversation at a time, because otherwise it becomes too noisy, except for the exercise time. At exercise time, you can do whatever you think is needed. And again, no cell phones, please. So Agile software engineering started a while back. Actually, the research shows that the first mentioning of Agile development goes back to 60s. Nobody was calling it, Agile at that time. And for a very long time, people were doing the traditional software testing processes, and they did not call Agile. But some companies still did some of the Agile testing. So nowadays, if you Google for Agile development, you will get different names. You will get Scrum, you will get XP, which is extreme programming. You can get Lean development, and different names. Actually, they all mean a similar methodology. So basically, Agile development means incremental framework for software project development. So instead of doing one large, project in one piece, what people are trying to do, they're trying to develop incrementally. The incremental software development model was on the market for the last 10 to 15 years, and people were calling it incremental. But over time, they formalized this incremental development into Agile development. And why people are doing Agile? I'll try to explain you this simple chart. So what happens if you follow the traditional so-called waterfall development model, right? So you have a set of requirements, and let's say you have 20 features to implement. And what development may choose to do for various reasons. There may be too many dependencies between different components. They may not have experience in Agile, or just they used to doing things in a traditional way. So they may choose to implement all these features and one, big iteration of code development. For example, they might tell you, you know what, I cannot give you anything in between. I will give you entire product. Let's say today is January, at the end of June. So 6 months down the road, you will get the feature complete product, which means at the end of the development cycle, you will get one big piece of code, which is untested at this point, and the quality of this product is unknown. And all these 20 features will be implemented in this piece of code. And then it's up to you guys to test. And this is where we can apply the test cases and all the best software, testing practices that we were learning for the last 3 sessions. So, and this is how the traditional development is done. So what happens here at point 0, we do not yet have any code, right? And then development process starts, and we do not have any handle on the code quality until we finish. So basically, the QA activities start here. This is the traditional approach. For many projects, this approach historically was found to be inefficient. And people found this by experience. And the reason for this approach being inefficient is that when you do not evaluate the quality of your product for a long time, then you will find critical issues at the end, right? You may find some fundamental design issues at the end, and then you do not have time to react to those bugs in an appropriate manner. So you will not have time to fix all the design issues, and basically if there is a fundamental design flaw in the product, then when you find it too late in the game, you will not have time to react quickly and redesign all the product, because your release time is already here, right? So that means you will not release a high quality product in time if you have major issues. Plus, market is quickly changing these days. Back in 80s or 90s, most of the companies, when they developed softwares, they had, schedules and planning and processes, and everything was outlined in advance. And the schedules looked really nice. But nowadays, because of the high competition and the increasing speed of software development, the market, you have to pace the market. You have to chase your customers, and you have to provide something, that satisfies customers quickly, right? You may not have the luxury of having 6 months just to understand if your concept is right, right? You need something, that gives you a quicker turnaround. So what people started doing, they started doing this incremental or agile development. So at this 0 point, what we have a set of 20 requirements. What people would do, and we'll go through the details later on, I'm just giving you the high-level overview of incremental development and agile processing. So what people would do, they would look at that set of 20 requirements, and when I say people, I mean the software development team. That includes development, right, engineering, quality assurance team, project management, if the company has project management, tech support, maybe, program managers, yes, business analysts, yes. Whoever you can gather is a project team. You have those people in a room, and you guys start brainstorming, on this feature set. So the key players in reviewing these features are development, because they know how to develop, or at least they think they know how to develop. And the product marketing, the people who know the market are also key players in this game. So if you have 20 requirements, you can sit in a room and prioritize all the requirements and say, okay, out of 20 requirements, we have, let's say, 5 requirements which are P1, which means high priority requirements. Unless we implement those, we cannot release, right? And then we have another 4 or 5 features which are kind of P2 priority, which means if you do not do those, we can probably still release. The customers will not be the happiest customers in the world, but we can still release. And then there may be some others which are cosmetic changes, and it's nice to have, but if you do not release, that's fine. And again, this set maybe, we may have like 15 P1 features without which we cannot release. Or we may have 5. It all depends, there are no standards, right? It all depends on your product, on your market segment, and on your development team and how well you know the market and what you expect of your product. And then what people do, they say, okay, we have development team of 5 people and we know how much we can accomplish in a particular period of time. So let's try to develop these features first. The high priority features would go into the product first, and then let's test it and see whether it's functional. So instead of having one big blob of code with the unknown quality, development team develops some code, and at this point, we try to understand the quality and see if the quality of these 5 features is good enough to release. So basically, and then if we look at this code and we test, we QA people, we test whatever developers developed, and if you find this product to be good enough to have sufficient quality, we go and implement the next set of features, which may be, so this is the P1 features, let's say we had 5, right? And then for the second iteration, we will choose the P2 features, or lower priority features. And again, we develop this code, and then we bring this quality to a standard level. And then, if product looks good at this point, we will go and develop the rest of the features. So see what happens. Instead of having a potentially shippable product at the end of your development cycle, which can mean like 6 months down the road, the effort for development and testing is time-boxed. So basically, people split the development and testing effort into chunks, and they say, if you have to prioritize, this is how we prioritize our effort. And by developing smaller pieces of code, and the smaller product you have, the more stable it is, right? Given this time. So we are accessing the quality. We are accessing the quality, and at any given point of time, when the time box is finished, we have a potentially shippable product.
Now, with second testing, is that comprehensive? That includes...
You mean when we do the second cycle, do we retest what we tested in the first cycle? That's a trick question. And we'll talk about this later on. It all depends on your project and what you agreed upon. And we'll talk about details of Agile. It's not always that simple. I would like to say yes to you. It should be retested. But it depends, on what features are and, how much the code was churned. And so, yeah, it varies from project to project. Ideally, it should be, especially if you have automation in place. Test automation will help you regress what was already developed, right? But yeah, we'll talk about this later on. Okay, so, and by following this model, so this is your time box. By following this model, what is happening? First of all, you stabilize your product early on, right? Instead of having stable product 6 months down the road, you may have your product stable within 4 weeks. This product will not have the complete feature set. It will not have all 20 features in it developed and fully functional. It will have maybe 5, but it will be a potentially shippable increment if, let's say, the market pushes you to release. You can probably release this product. Again, this approach is not applicable to each and every project, each and every software, because it depends on the complexity, and we'll talk about challenges in Agile and where it can or cannot be applied. But I'm just explaining you the general principle of Agile. And so this time box varies again from company to company and project to project, but in average it takes from 2 to 4 weeks. And this time box, so basically every 2 to 4 weeks, 2 weeks in my opinion is too little, unless you have a really small application like maybe iPhone app or web-based site where you do some cosmetic changes, then you can possibly do this. But usually it is between 4, some companies choose to do 6 weeks. That's also acceptable. So, but at least every month and a half, you will have your product stabilized and brought to definite level of quality, and then the project team, which is developers plus QA plus program management plus product marketing. So that project team can decide, look at the quality and the feature set that we have, and decide whether you want to release or not. So this is the basic principle of agile development and why people are doing it. Do you have any questions on this chart? Okay. Yes or no? No. No. Okay, good. So, and this is what I'm saying. So all names of Agile, and you may have like Scrum, XP, Lean, they do have this similar methodology in place. So we follow incremental framework for software project development. And the purpose of having this is to accommodate rapid product changes. Because one more advantage of having this model, Agile model, is this. Let's say we started this project in January. And this set of features was based on the market requirements on January 1st, right? The product marketing guy, the guy who owns the product would come and say, yeah, I want these 20 features to be implemented in this product. And it took us, let's say, 4 weeks or 6 weeks to develop the first increment. And mid-February, by Valentine's Day, by February 14th, we have first potentially shippable product, right? And at this point, we can look at these, requirements and see if we should start the second, time box for development. But what may happen, the market, remember the market is changing quickly these days. So the market may change between beginning of January and mid-February. So the guy who owns the product marketing guy, can come to you and say, you know what, we wanted to do these 4 features as priority 2 features. But now the market changed, so the competitors released this and this and this, we cannot beat them. Instead, let's do this feature and this feature and this feature and this feature, So what, if you follow the incremental development, then changing requirements on the fly is easy. I'm not saying this is ideal, but if you have to pace the market, if you have to chase your customers and the market requirements, this is what you can do. So, and this way, by reprioritizing the requirements for each time box, you can accommodate rapid product changes. And product changes should follow market changes. So the market changes, right? So you need to adjust quickly. If the market changes here, you cannot do anything because your features are interdependent and they're all being developed in parallel. So even if the market changes with this model, you cannot quickly react. So you will still release the product with this set of features. But chances are, by the time you release your product, your market is gone. You can miss the market opportunity. I had this story happening to some of my friends. They established a startup, and they were very good and successful, but they missed the market window. And the startup just vanished, unfortunately. They had a very good networking, protocols and everything, but they missed their window. So we do not want to be this to be happening to products. So that's why people do Agile as well. So if you know that the market for your application is quickly changing, and you cannot reasonably predict, and prioritize all the requirements 6 months, ahead, at least prioritize for the next 4 to 6 weeks. See what you should implement, what you must implement in these 4 to 6 weeks, and then reprioritize and see if you need to change something. And then, let's say by end of March, right, we are done with the second increment, we will go and revalidate the requirements again and see if the market changed again. If the market changed, we need to change these features. Or maybe some of these features were pushed down the line, then something else was implemented. Now we have time to implement those guys. So this process is very dynamic, but that allows you to address the market changes. And all Agile methodologies have frequent releases and short development cycles. Some people call them sprints, and we'll go in details through what sprint is. And sprint is actually time boxing. Some people just call them time boxes. It doesn't really matter. Documentation in Agile is minimal, if it all exists. That's the principal difference, because if you look at the process, if you only have 4 to 6 weeks to develop and test a set of features, chances for you to have time to develop proper documentation are minimal. I've been to a conference recently in Vegas. That was a conference for the software development, and everyone was doing Agile. And I asked people, okay, how do you feel about documentation? And people said that, yes, we do not have time to develop documentation, but we found it difficult to track your history if you don't have the documentation, right? So you don't have time to have proper documentation in place. On the other hand, it's challenging not to remember or have track of what you did in the past. So many companies and projects and teams come up with a hybrid approach where they kind of do Agile. They do not have the formalized set of cases in place. So basically, all that exercise that we did with you, right, in the previous classes, they don't go through that. Instead, they may just go with a checklist, where for each test case, they would have at least one line description of what they tested. They can keep it in Word documents and Excel documents, but at least people still want to have, an ability to go back and see what was tested in previous releases and whether it passed or failed. But again, the documentation is minimal. However, what is being tracked is the set of requirements, because set of requirements defines the content of your product, right? And it is very dynamic. So this set of requirements should be very well defined, and it may change over time, but these are the features that are being tracked. And as I said, Agile teams frequently do not have any formal test cases, just some checklists or some other notes on the testing that was done. It also depends on your technology, because many teams, they use test automation. And when you have test automation suite in place, you can always go back and see what was tested, right, in previous releases. But on the other hand, developing automation and testing manually in parallel is also challenging. So I'll tell you later on how people overcome this and how they deal with the Agile development. Despite of all these challenges, people still think Agile is beneficial, just because, first of all, it allows you to have potentially shippable product in shorter periods of time, and secondly, it allows you to accommodate rapid market changes. So that's why people do Agile. So these are a couple of pictures for the Agile manifesto. So basically, the motto of Agile is we should respond to a change instead of following a plan, right? Because the purpose of Agile is to follow the quickly changing market and requirements. And what is very important in Agile is that individuals and interactions are more important than processes and tools. When you have only 4 to 6 weeks of development time, that should also include testing effort, right? Unless you have a very good working team of people, you cannot succeed. So, and this is where people work and people interactions and communications become your key to success in Agile environment. So this is a few lines of comparison between the traditional software development approach and Agile. So as you remember, in traditional software development, we have predefined set of features and low requirements churn. So basically, we are trying to finalize the requirements this early in the cycle. We are trying to say, okay, these are the 20 requirements we will implement, nothing else, nothing more, nothing less, and we go with that. Instead, in Agile, we have dynamically defined and prioritized sets of features. So for each increment, for each time box, you will have its own set of features, which may change dynamically. So in traditional development, we deliver large piece of software here, or entire product, which has less stability at the end. And in Agile, we are delivering in smaller pieces, one by one. But because we have shorter development periods, these pieces of software are more stable at any given point of time. Scrum is one of the varieties of Agile. And again, when you come to an interview, I mean, people may ask you different questions. Are you familiar with Agile, and what is Agile, and how people do it? I hope after today's class you will have an understanding of what Agile is. Scrum is just one of the methodologies that people use. And when people ask you what is Scrum, don't think that this is this guy, because it is not. Instead, Scrum is a type of Agile software engineering. It can also be defined as iterative and incremental framework for software engineering, or it can also be defined as the process with predefined set of practices and roles. And Scrum is very popular. So if on the interview you can demonstrate that you know what Scrum is, which I hope you will do after today's class, so that's very good for you. And if the company you are interviewing with is not doing Scrum, but instead it's doing just lean development or extreme programming, it will not be too much different. As long as you have the basic understanding of the concept and the spirit of Agile, you should be fine. And again, after the class, you are welcome to Google on your own and see what other Agile methodologies are there on the market and what are the differences. But again, as long as you understand the concept of Scrum, you should be fine for the Agile development practices. So why people do Scrum? And basically, the term Scrum comes from sports. I think in rugby, it means team, right? Or teamwork or something. Bonding of the team. Scrimmage, yeah, it comes from scrimmage, yeah. So, and that's why it's not an acronym, it's not an abbreviation, it just comes from the sport, just because doing Scrum is very much about having good team, productive team. The team should be self-led, it should be self-motivated, and we'll talk about team later on, but that's how the term Scrum arrived on the market. And we do Scrum to maximize teams' ability to deliver quickly and respond to evolving and changing requirements. And we also want to develop functionality in smaller and stable increments, as opposite to one large, unstable blob, and have potentially deliverable product in shorter periods of time. In Scrum, the time box, basically the amount of time you have between you start your increment and finish your increment. So this time box is called sprint. And typical sprint duration is 2 to 4 weeks, and we'll go through details. If you don't see all these, text, that's fine, because we'll go through each and every box later on. So the typical duration of one sprint is 2 to 4 weeks. If 6 weeks doesn't work for your project, you can choose 8 weeks, that's fine. But the longer duration you have, the more challenges you have, right? Because the number of code lines developed during 8 weeks will make your product more complex. So the chances of you coming to a reasonable quality level at the end of your increment is getting lower. So that's why people usually tend to have like 4 weeks every month, right? From, let's say, Monday to Monday, you have one sprint. First Monday of this month and first Monday of next month, you have one sprint. It also psychologically disciplines people, right? Because development knows, okay, I have to deliver. Unless I deliver, I will be late. Unlike in traditional approach, 6 months down the road, I'm supposed to deliver like 5 features. Oh, I have plenty of time. I can research my design, I can try this, I can try that. So time flies out. And then you're late in development, you didn't deliver. So Agile disciplines people, very well. How Scrum is done, it should start with a team. Without a reasonable team, without good working team with efficient communications, you cannot be successful in Agile development. Because Agile development in many aspects is about trusting people you work with, right? So Scrum team is usually sized in between 5 and 9 people, because you have to have few roles in the Scrum team. First of all, you have to have a Scrum Master. So Scrum Master is the main guy in the team, kind of, Not main in the sense that he will define what will be developed, what will go into this sprint, which features and stuff, but he's the guy behind the scenes who will make sure that the team moves with a reasonable speed. So he's the shepherd, right, for the herd. He will observe each and every one. He will track the progress on a daily basis, and if the people get stuck for whatever reason, it is Scrum Master's responsibility to resolve the obstacles. And I think I have a couple of more slides on Scrum Master. Yeah. So we also should have a product owner in a team. Product owner is the person who knows the market very well. So this is the guy already who defines the set of requirements for you, right? And we should also, and okay, so we already have 2 people who should be part of the Scrum team, right? In addition to that, you need someone to develop your code, which means you need at least 1 or 2 developers, and you also need at least 1 QA person, right? And yes, if you have 3 people for the development and QA team, right? You have 3 people. Will you have 2 developers, 1 QA, or will you have 1 developer, 2 QAs? 2 developers, 1 QA. Unfortunately, most of the companies do choose to have 2 developers and 1 QA. But I know teams where code is very complex and it has a lot of churn, and they may have 1 brilliant developer and 3 QAs testing the results of his work. There are no standards. It all depends. And again, it depends on your project and team agility. But the main thing is you should trust your peers. And again, when the first time you form the team, this Scrum team, you may think, oh, we have the ideal Scrum Master, we have the ideal product owner who knows the market like there is no tomorrow. We have a very brilliant, developer guy, and 2 most skillful QA guys will be just perfect as a Scrum team. But guess what? Unless you go through few sprints, you cannot verify your team. You cannot say if your team is a good Scrum team, right? And this knowledge comes with experience. And but again, to start with, you should have at least 5 people in a team. This is from where this number comes, 5. And the upper limit for the Scrum team is considered to be 9, just because if you have more than 9 people, then you have too many opinions in the group, and you cannot be effective. I don't know if you know this, but if you invite guests to your house, the 9 people is the limit to the number of people who can have 1 conversation at the table. If you have 10, the conversation tends to split into 2 or 3 conversations, right? So this is why people choose, this 5 to 9 people team size, and it's proven to work very well. So, and another requirement for this team is that all the team members have to be co-located, because you have to interact on a daily basis. If you have only 4 to 6 or maybe 2 weeks to develop your features, you have to talk to people every day. You have to see them every day. Of course, theoretically, you can communicate over emails. But let me tell you this. If you have a team, let's say we have a team in Bangalore, India, and we have a team in Europe, right? If you have a question to another team member, right? It's night in Europe during our daytime, which means you can only ask it by email. So you will send an email to your peer. You will get the response by next morning if you are lucky. If that person gets sick, right, then you have to wait for another day for your response to come. Instead, if your peer is co-located with you in one cube, you just turn over and you say, hey, can you tell me this and this and that? You have an answer in like 2 minutes. So the efficiency, you cannot compare efficiency in agile development when your team is co-located or remotely located. There are situations where you have to work with remote teams just because you don't have the budget to fund the team, locally. Then you'll have to find a way to, bypass it. Most of the people end up working either early or late hours, right? But it's up to you to decide if that works for you. But this is how you can overcome it. That means forget the 9 to 5, schedule. You will be working early mornings or late nights to communicate to that team, and then you'll catch up with your work somewhere, during the daytime. Different teams and companies apply different methodologies, but Scrum works the best and any Agile works the best if all of your team members are co-located in one office, preferably in one floor, preferably in cubes next to each other in one room. That's the best. The amount of work the team of 5 or 9 people can do is limited, right? If you need to develop, let's say, 20 features and 10 of them are priority 1 features, which means they have to be developed like yesterday. It's not like if you have 9 people, even if you have 9 people, you have 1 is Scrum Master, 1 is Product Owner, and you have 7 remaining, right, team members. Okay, if you're lucky, you have 5 developers, 2 QAs, for example, or 4 developers, 3 QAs. Again, these people, within like 4 or 6 weeks, may not be able to develop all the features that are needed. So what happens then? Do not increase the size of your team. Instead, make it 2 Scrum teams, right? If you need more development, do not put everyone in one team. Just have 2 Scrum teams and say, okay, this team is responsible for features A, B, C, and this team is responsible for features X, Y, Z. This way, you can still be efficient in Scrum, and you can still develop the set of features that is needed by just 2 Scrum teams. So what will happen in this case, let's say this is the feature set developed by team A, and you will have another team, this is team A, and then you will have another team, team B, which will be developing its own set of features. And at some point, you will need to integrate. So you may spend 1 sprint in integrating the 2 products. Nowadays, people are talking about continuous integration. Like you have to rebuild all your code in one piece, and then someone else have to test it. But it depends on the process established in the company. If you don't have the luxury of having automation for continuous integration, then what you can do, teams can develop in parallel, and at some point, you may choose to do 1 sprint only for integration. No new features are added. What we do, we merge the code from this branch and code from this branch. We integrate everything, and everyone, development and QA, test the results of integration. That's the fun moment, believe me. Okay. Now let's look at the details of whom we should have in our group. So Scrum Master, as I said, it is the person who is responsible for Scrum sprints running smoothly, and this guy already leads the team actually, and this person facilitates and coordinates everything, and this person also helps removing the obstacles. When people develop software, you may encounter different kinds of things. For example, to develop your product, you need this product is supposed to be supported on various hardware platforms. You may need to have a server with Intel processor. You may need to have a server with the AMD processor, this and that. So you may need different hardware in place. And for example, let's say development develop the code, and testers are supposed to test, and you only have 4 weeks to do everything. And turns out your purchase order got stuck somewhere, and we need to start the testing like today, and we don't have the server with AMD processor in place. Guess who is the guy who will need to figure out where to get the server? The Scrum Master, right? The Scrum Master is supposed to chase everyone down and understand where the machine can be found. And I've seen very creative Scrum Masters, in my life. Some of them would just run down to Fry's Electronics, get some stuff, have things tested, and then return it back to Fry's, right? Or another option could be, nowadays, Amazon, for example, provides you with the cloud services. So you can request any type of, they will give you a virtual machine, so to speak, right? They can give you, if you want Linux, any Linux flavor. If you need the test your software on the Ubuntu, let's say, or SUSE, or whatever flavor of Linux, you just go to those services and you ask for it, and it doesn't cost you too much. Of course, you need to have the budget for it, right? You need, but I think it costs like 10 or 25 bucks a month. I think the company can probably afford it, or maybe per usage. I will not lie about the prices, but it is doable. So it is up to Scrum Master to envision all that and to find the ways to resolve, the obstacles that the team has. So the Scrum Master has to have this particular type of personality, which is communicative, proactive, optimistic in general. Because you cannot have a guy, who goes like that and, always begs for equipment and everything. Scrum Master has to be, energized and always jump to things and lead the team. So definitely the Scrum Master has to have the leadership qualities. And the Scrum Master also safeguards the process. So it's his or her responsibility to monitor the process on a daily basis. And we'll talk about how this is done. And if the Scrum Master sees that the process deviates from the planned curve, then there should be some measures to be taken. And it's up to Scrum Master to identify what needs to be done and how the Scrum Master does it. We'll talk about this later in the lecture. And yes, he acts as a sheepdog for the team, and it can be anyone with necessary skills. There are some companies who provide you with certification for Scrum, mastering. So I myself, I am a Scrum Master, but you don't need certification to be a successful Scrum Master. What matters the most is your personality, your qualities, your leadership skills, and your desire to lead the team. That's it. And then your common sense, of course, right? You have to have your, gray matter, and your brain should be active all the time. Product owner. Product owner is the guy in a suit who comes every day and tells you what the market wants. And this guy or lady should be business oriented. And actually this person defines so-called product backlog. Product backlog, I'm purposely inserting this terminology here so you guys can get used to it. So product backlog, it is a fancy name for the set of requirements. This is the terminology that comes from Agile world. So backlog is nothing else but the set of features that we identified for our project to develop. And the product owner also prioritizes the features because this guy is supposed to know the market the best. Of course, nobody said that this guy is the best guy to know the market unless it's proven. But after a few sprints, you will know. After a couple of releases, you will know if the product owner is really a good product owner, if he or she knows the market very well. And you can also consult with business analysts or any other field specialists if you want for the features to be developed. And the product owner owns the vision of the product and the release dates and costs, right? Because if this guy already wants too many features to be developed, the more features you want in a product, the more expensive the product is. Right, so then the schedules needs to be evaluated, and scheduling in Agile is yet another challenge because you have to project for many unknowns, and how you do that I'll talk about this in a few minutes. So, but again, we need to define the release dates and costs and schedules, and then the product owner is to validate the schedules and see whether we meet the market requirements or are we off. Are we in time to meet the market requirements? So this is what the responsibility of product owner is. And again, product owner has to be very firm in defining the product requirements. But that person should also be open to negotiations with the team. And we'll go through this process because product owner may want to have like 20 features, but if implementing those 20 features takes us, to February release, then it doesn't make any good. So this is where negotiation, process takes place, and the product owner negotiates with the team. Okay, what if we don't do 20 features? What if we do these 12? Can we release by November, for example? Or if we do this 5, can we release by October? So this process is happening all along all the sprints, all the time boxes. And this person can easily be the product or project or marketing manager. It depends. But again, there is no requirements for this guy to have a certification in place. However, by expertise, by knowledge, the product, project, or marketing managers are the best people for this role, because you have to know the market, you have to know your customers. And now the team, the actual guys who do the work. Those are developers, QAs, architects, analysts, tech writers, subject matter experts, etc., etc. And these guys are the team who actually does the work, the coding and the testing. And this team is also responsible for estimates and planning the work and risks. And the main thing is this team is responsible for doing all the needful to deliver on schedule. So you have to trust your peers, you have to trust your team, and it's, as I said, it may be challenging in some situations to reasonably project the effort that's needed for development and testing effort, but still you may miss in a couple of first sprints, but eventually, usually by the third or fourth sprint, people get to know the subject better, and they are more responsible in planning. And most of the Scrum teams, by the third or fourth sprint, they get into release train, and they keep up with the planned releases. When you build the team, the Scrum team, there are a few basic principles without which you cannot build a successful team. And those are trust, commitment. And if you're the team member, if you say, I will test this today, please be sure you test this feature by today. Of course, many things may happen. Your laptop may break. In which case, whom do you go to? Scrum Master, right? If something goes wrong during sprint, the first person you contact is the Scrum Master. Because the Scrum Master is the guy who keeps in his head or laptop or in some tracking worksheets, he tracks all the progress done by each and every team member. If you know that something happened to you, or maybe God forbid, your child got sick, right? So you will not be at work tomorrow. Scrum Master is the first person you notify. So if something delays your effort, then you go to Scrum Master and inform him about this. Commitment and reliability, but unless anything of this sort happens, you cannot not deliver what you promised just because you wanted to have an extra cup of coffee, or your lunch with friends took like 3 hours instead of 1, right? Or you were not in the mood and you needed to book airfare to, I don't know, Mexico and back, right? And you spent like an hour trying to find a cheap flight. So those are not excuses. They're not excuses in general, especially in Agile development, to not deliver what you are supposed to deliver. And of course, honesty. You have to be honest with your team. If something prevents you from doing the task that you're assigned to, be vocal and communicative and tell, yeah, this is why I cannot do this. Excuse me. Be professional. Be an effective communicator. Unless the communications are effective within the team, you cannot successfully deliver. And most of Scrum teams are self-organized and self-led. If you noticed, there is no manager position in a Scrum team, right? It doesn't mean the project in general will not be managed at all. There will be one probably manager somewhere supervising few Scrum projects. But in general, the small Scrum team of like 5 to 9 people does not require a manager, because by definition, Scrum team is supposed to be self-organized, proactive, and self-led. So each person should feel responsible for what is being delivered, and this spirit drives the Agile development. And this is how good softwares are being developed, actually, by the spirit of people who are developing it. Sprint, as I mentioned, is a basic unit of development in Scrum. It's nothing else but a time box, right? So typical duration is from 1 to 4 weeks. Can be 6 weeks, yes. And sprint is time box, which means it is restricted to a specific duration of effort of a constant length. In best Agile practices, you should have your time boxes of the same duration. Sometimes it may seem to you that, yes, this set of features is more complex, it will take us 8 weeks, and the next set of features is less complex, so it will take us 4 weeks. So you may be tempted to have one cycle of 8 weeks and then another cycle of 4 weeks. But in best practices, based on people's experience in the industry, you should always have same duration for all your sprints, just because it disciplines people first, and second, if you're off in your development process, if the quality doesn't look good, if your concept is wrong, you better know it early in the game than later, right? So that's why people usually stick to, let's say, 4 weeks, cycles, and they go with the cycles. If you cannot develop 5 features in 4 weeks, take 3 features, take 2 features, develop those features in 4 weeks, and then move to the next sprint. Plus, the smaller pieces of code, the smaller increments in size, smaller in size you have, the easier it is for QA team, for QA people to test, right? So you can access the quality, you can understand where you are with the quality, whether this piece of software is functional, and then you move forward. And before each sprint, what Agile teams have, what Scrum teams have, they have planning meeting for this particular sprint. And after the sprint is done, after 4 weeks are gone, people do review, and they also do a demo and a retrospective analysis of the sprint, what went wrong, what went right, all that kind of things, and we'll go through details a little later. So, product backlog, another term that you should know. So product backlog is nothing else, as I said, as a set of features for your product that comes from whom? Who defines your product log? Who? Product owner, exactly. Product owner defines your product backlog. And this product backlog may be as long as 50 features. It may be as short as 10 features. It all depends. I mean, there are no standards on how big or small your product backlog should be. And if you look at that wall, you will see those post-its. And I'm using the post-its just because many teams who practice Agile and Scrum, they do work with post-its, just because it's very easy to change the priorities, right? If you want to change the priorities, what you do, let's say the priorities go from left to right. So whatever is the most left has the highest priority. Whatever is the most right has the lowest priority. In the sprint planning meetings, the product owner would go and say, you know what, I want these first five post-its to be implemented in the first iterations. And then development would come and say, no, you know what, we cannot do this unless we do this first, right? So, and then the product owner would look at this and said, yeah, but then we do not do this. I cannot do without that. So please do this at the end, right? And then development would think and say, yeah, probably we may escape doing this, but then we should do at least this, And this is how, the sprint planning meetings go. And what we have here is the breakdown of our class. So basically, we have the breakdown of our class. These are the topics that I'm covering as we go forward. So this set of post-its is the product backlog for today's class. Imagine this is your project, right? So, and on each post-it, you see the topic, and you see the number. Do you see the number? Mm-hmm. Good. What do you think that number is? Minutes of what? If those are minutes, if you summarize all the minutes, we will not sum up with 4 hours. No, those are not minutes.
Is it topics, the first, the second, the third?
No, we have several ones. We have a couple of twos. We have 125. And what?
Teams, maybe teams.
Teams? No, because I'm the presenter. I'm doing the work. You guys are not yet working in Scrum, right? So I'm doing the Scrum.
Do you have a slides for each topic?
It is not the number of slides.
No, what slide it's on.
No, because we have several, numbers which are the same, right? We have several ones, so those cannot be slide numbers. Priority? No, it is not the priority. No, no. It is not the business owner. Any more ideas? Price? Kind of. It is kind of, it is not price because I cannot price the lecture to you. You've already paid, right? So no, these are actually the work units that I think we will spend as a team on those topics. So basically, if I take 4 hours of time and I split it by these topics based on my experience, right, or with this class, those numbers are the relative work units. If you break, I know that we have, I think overall, probably it's like 51 work units or something. So if you break all that, this is the relative weight of this topic in the course of tonight's class. In other words, if it was the actual Agile project where we would develop the software, those would be the work units. So basically, when the product backlog is defined by the product owner, the very important parameter for each feature is how long it will take or how much effort it will take for development to develop and for testers to test this feature. Unless you have this number, you cannot, and this should be in man days, right? Of course, in our case, it's relative work units. Those are not man days. Otherwise, we would be stuck like for a couple of months here, right? So, but in real life, people provide those estimates in man days, which means if one person is developing, let's say, this feature, right, how many days it will take this person to develop and test. And for this feature, maybe 1 day. For this feature, will be 5 days, and stuff like that. The challenge in defining the longevity of effort for those features is that when this project starts, when the software development project starts, and if this is a new project and the team never did Agile development before, if you're just starting in Agile, you need to understand how you can reasonably project the effort, right? And there are 2 main methodologies that people use in Scrum in Agile development. One is approximation. So what you can do, you can split all your features in buckets. And for simplicity, you can say, you can bucketize your features as small features, medium features, and large features, right? So I'm giving you an example here for the house painting project. So let's say this is the floor plan of our house, and this is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. It has a garage and a kitchen, and you need to paint this house, right? If you need to quantify the work which is needed for each unit, and the part of the house, and you have garage, you have kitchen, you have whole living room, you have 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and 3 bedrooms. If you need to split the effort, if you need to categorize and bucketize your effort as small, medium, and large, your garage is which one?
Small.
Garage is small? What about this guy? Because it's all relative, right? Okay, so your bathroom is which one? Small. It is the smallest piece, right? So this bathroom? Small. Okay, this guy? Large. This guy? Medium. Kinda, yeah. This one? Large. This one? Medium? If this is large and this is medium, I think this is large. Kitchen? Okay, I make it simple. I'll just move the wall, okay? I'll just move the wall. I make kitchen here. Okay, this is your kitchen. So now what size is it? Medium. What about whole living room?
Extra large.
Right?
Extra.
Yeah. So XXL and tall, right? Because you have high ceilings. So this will give you the bucketization of your features, right? And people do this because sometimes if it is a completely new project, it's hard to predict how long it will take to develop a feature. And if you have a feature which is So by categorizing this, what you do, you bucketize your features first. And then you try to understand for a small feature, because it's always easier to quantify something smaller in size than, for example, this extra large, right? So you take the smallest feature, and both development and QA guys look at this feature, and they collectively try to understand how long it will take them to develop this feature, develop and test this feature, right? And collectively they come with the estimate that, the small feature, for example, the small feature will take us 2 days. And then, how many small features we have? Again, collectively, development and QA look at the feature. They try to better understand the effort. And for example, for the medium, we've looked at it and we said, yeah, it will be 4 days. How many medium features we have? 2, right? Which means overall effort is how much? 8 days. Okay. And then the large items, right? For the large items, we brainstormed, we looked at the feature, and we decided collectively between development and QA that each large feature takes, let's say, 7 days. How many large features we have? 3, which means 21 days. Now the biggie, right? The XXL, the living room. 10 days, for example. I'm making the numbers up, but in real life, development and QA would look into the, feature itself, what needs to be developed, would probably think through approximate list of tasks to be run on that, and give this estimate. So this one, we have only one feature, so the total effort is 10 days. Now, you have this bucket of 2 small features, 2 days each, 2 medium features, right? In the medium bucket, 4 days each. You have 3 large ones, 7 days each. You have 1 biggie of 10 days. And with this approximation in place, it becomes easier to plan your sprints. If your sprint is 4 weeks, right? And you have 4 weeks is how many days? 20 days, right? Are we working on weekends? I'm proud of you guys. So business days, we have 20 business days in 4 weeks, so it is 20 days. And let's say we have a development team, the guys who actually do the work, not the Scrum Master who runs around, right, with the stick and makes people do things, and not the product owner who chats with customers all the time, but the actual hardworking guys, right, in working helmets. We have, let's say, 2 developers, 1 QA. This effort is collective between QA and development. So we know that if we have 20 days and 3 people, how many man days we have? 60, right? 60 man days. And how many days of development and testing effort we have in total? 4 and 8, 31, 43? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so 43. We are lucky, because it seems like we can finish all of our features in 1 iteration, right? If the iteration is 4 weeks. Now, to make life interesting, let's say we have an iteration of 2 weeks, because the market is changing very fast, and the marketing people, the product owner wants us to deliver faster. Then if we have only 2 weeks, we have 10 days. With 3 people, we have 30 working days. That means we have 43 days of total effort, development plus QA, but for the first sprint, we only have 30 man days, which means we need to cherry pick features that would fit in the 30 days window, right? How can we cherry pick? We can probably, right?
Take away garage.
Yeah, it's easy because garage, nobody cares about the garage, right? You can put junk and stuff in the garage, and then nobody will even see what a beautiful job you did in the garage. But what is important also, remember that all your features will be prioritized, right? So for example, master bedroom, P0, priority 0, right? It has to be done first no matter what, because I want to have a beauty sleep in a comfortable environment. So I want my master bedroom to be painted first. And then kids. Okay, let's be nice to them. Let's make it P1. Let's make this P1, and this is for the in-laws. Let's be nice to them, right? They help with the kids. Okay, fine. Kitchen. Who said kitchen? Do you cook a lot? Okay. Okay, so let's make it P1. So, bathrooms. Master bathroom should be a P1.
Its priority is 0.
Yeah, P0. Okay, P1. This bathroom, you know, kids and in-laws, they can survive. Yeah, let's make it P2. Okay, priority 2. Hall. You have so much stuff in the hall that if you decide to do the hall, we need to move the furniture around and stuff. So, and yeah, it's not in a bad shape. Maybe, yeah, let's make it P3. Garage, nobody cares, P4. So now, what you do, you look at the priority of your features and the effort it takes. For example, what goes into the first sprint? Let's see. The first bedroom, P0, bedroom is large. It is 7 days, right? This is 7 days. Okay. We still have how many days left? 23 days. You can still pick up the features. Okay. P1, medium, 4 days, right? How many days? Now we have 11. How many left? 19. Okay. So what is the next P1? Okay, this guy. This guy is large. It's 7 days. Aha. Now we have 18 days of effort, right? And 11 days left. What is the next one? P1. Kitchen, medium, 4 days. Now we take the kitchen. This is, kitchen is 4 days, right? So now we have 22 days effort taken and 7 left. What we can do in 7 days? We can probably do 1 bathroom.
I think we have 12 left.
12?
Yeah.
Here we have 12?
Yeah.
Here.
18 plus 12 makes 30, right?
19 instead of 18.
Okay. 19 here. And still 11. Okay. 12? 18? Okay, you count better, guys. I trust you. You're my team, I trust you. Okay, so and then then we take what else do we take? We took this guy, right? So then we have 22 days of effort already planned for the sprint. We have only 7 days. 8. Sorry, thank you. 8 days left. Oh, in 8 days we can do 2 bathrooms, and we'll complete almost everything except for P3 and P4. Isn't it beautiful? Yes, it is. So we are taking those 2 bathrooms, and our sprint planning is done. So we filled, you know, this with all the resources. We cannot take more than that. And this is how planning is done using this methodology, approximation, right? Of course, as you start your testing activities and development activities, you will figure out that some of the estimates you gave in the beginning might not be very correct, right? Or precise or accurate. Just because it's not your fault. No guilt trips whatsoever, right? It's just because you never had any experience with Agile. This is a new project, new technology, and some people, they try to be very conservative in first few sprints, which is a reasonable approach. Try not to overestimate your capacity. Try to be conservative, because it is always better to finish sprint earlier than to be late with your sprint. However, if it happens that you tried hard and you did very good planning in the beginning, and still your first sprint didn't go well for whatever reason, the technology might be wrong, the database didn't scale properly, you tried to implement the web interfaces using Flash technology, and then it got stuck somewhere because the license for the Flash, getting the license took like 3 days, so everyone was delayed. You can have various reasons for that. So you do not panic. What you do instead, you just, okay, where do we? Okay, no, so, yeah, so you just do the retrospective meeting. So I have the slides down the line. But anyway, so when you plan your sprint, you try from the product backlog that you have, let's say for this house painting project, you try to pick what makes sense, what you can do within 1 sprint. If you have some experience in Agile, you are likely to have more precise estimates for your development. You do not need to bucketize into small, medium, and large. Instead, you can just have the effort that it takes to develop and test. And this may come from experience, Or what some people do in agile development, and this is actually a general rule for any project, not only software development. The rule of thumb is that unless you can break down your effort, which means features, down to smaller chunks, and the chunks that you have are more than 4 hours in duration, you cannot do precise estimates, which means you have to keep breaking your features down, right? Because when you have a large feature, you do not know how to quantify the effort. It applies to both development and QA. So what you can do, let's say you have feature A, and this feature is a large one. And you sit there with development and thinking, oh, will it take us like 2 weeks to develop and test? Or will it take us to, 3 weeks to develop and test? We have no clue. If you are puzzled, if you cannot even provide those, bucketized estimates, what you do, you break your feature down. Because if you look at any complex feature, it can always be broken into smaller tasks, right? Even in house painting, you can always break down your house painting job, right? You can break it down to ceilings, floors, walls. Then you can run some pilot experimenting, paint like 5 square feet of your wall and see how long it takes you. And here, what you can do, you can break your master task for this feature to smaller feature. Let's say A1, A2, A3. And then development and QA will try to project how long it will take to develop and test each of those sub-features. Chances are you may not be able to reasonably project. What you do then, you break it down to A11, A12, A21, A22, A23, and this may be A31, A32, so forth, A37. See, you're breaking down the features to smaller pieces until each piece to which you broke down takes you no more than half day or 4 hours. In people's experience in the industry, if you do this, your estimates will be true and correct. If your estimates are not going down to that level, then you may miss first few sprints unless you break down your features. And teams who do Scrum and who do Agile for a long periods of time, they become very proficient and good in estimating, the feature complexity and the duration of effort and its own, agility for the team. And different teams have different agility. It depends on the experience of the developers and testers. It depends on the communication level. The higher experienced people you have, the more productive the team can be. However, you also should have good communications, because a lot of software errors and missing requirements happen from miscommunications. So you have to communicate effectively in a Scrum team to achieve the results that you want. So basically, bucketization of your features into small, medium, large is one way of projecting your estimates and time estimates, and this is another way. You break down complex features into smaller pieces until you have a good handle on how long it takes for each sub-features to develop, and then of course you sum everything up. And then you have the total number of man days for this major feature. So what I have on those slides are these numbers, is that effort. This is the analogy of that effort that would come from all the sub-features in one big one. So this is number of days and days. This is what would go into that post-it with the feature name in the real Scrum project. Any questions on effort planning? Okay. Now, you may have the product backlog outlined right there on the wall. Out of that set of features, you need to pick something for the sprint. This is what we just did with the house painting project. So same would be done with the product backlog. Out of, I never counted my post-its, by the way. But anyway, out of all these post-its, let's say, if we are to do the first sprint, we would pick the first few which have the highest priority, right? And we would say, okay, we want this to go into our first sprint. Because this list already prioritized, we can make our life easier and say, okay, we just count. We know that in the first sprint, we will have, let's say, 7 work units that we can finish. And work unit may be 1 day, 2 days, right? So if those are 7 work units, and each digit is 1 work unit, so then how much you can do? How much you can do, Michael? So 7 work units, right? So you can do 1, and then 2, it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So your sprint would end up here. See? You can do only 7 work units. That means this is how much you can do in your first sprint. And by the way, once you define your sprint scope, that set of features that goes into sprint is called sprint backlog. So the overall set of post-its is your product backlog. The set of features that goes into this sprint, this sprint that you are working on, is called sprint backlog. Once you start your sprint, you need to track the progress. And how do we track the progress? We use this beautiful tool called burn down chart, which is a very simple, and I have this beautiful tool there on the wall. So all it takes you is a piece of paper which is large enough so you can see it from the far, and everyone should be able to see it. And what you do on that chart on a daily basis, you come, and this burn down chart has 2 axes. So the vertical numbers is your work units. It can be days, it can be weeks, but of course usually people do days. So these are your work units, and this is your time. So basically, let me just move this for a second. Okay. For our class, what I did, I put hours here. We started at 7 p.m., right? And I did a breakdown for 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10, and 11. We'll see how much we would be able to accomplish based on our class backlog. So we started at 7 p.m., 7:10, but anyway, let's say 7, with 51 units of work. What time is it now? 8:30. 8:30? Okay, so we are right here, right, with 8:30. So let's see how much we were able to accomplish.
It's 22 units anyway.
No, it cannot be 22 because we have exercise which is 25. You mean 25 22 post-its? Oh, that's fine. But what we are counting, we are not counting the post-its. We are counting the units. Each post-it has different weight, right? This is how people estimate the effort. Okay. Okay, Scrum General, covered. Sprint definition, covered. Sprint backlog, covered. Sprint planning, covered. Okay, so this is covered. This is covered. Okay. Scrum team, right? We went through this. Scrum team is done. What?
Agile model.
Yeah. Okay. Burn down chart, we're still on this topic, we haven't finished yet. What? Scrum sprint, yeah, one more. Can you please pull it for me? Thank you. Okay.
Sprint terminology?
We are not done yet. We are still going through it, right? So we are not finished.
Sprint review?
No, we haven't even started for the sprint review. Okay. So 1, 2, plus 5, 7. Plus 3, 8, 9, 10, 11.
7 plus 3, 10. 7 plus 3, 10.
What did I say? No, and then there was one more. 11. Okay, I will recount. 1 and 1. 2. Beautiful. Plus 5.
7.
Plus 3.
10.
10. Plus 1.
11.
Plus 1.
12.
Plus 1.
13.
Plus 1.
14.
Plus 4.
18.
18. 40. No.
17.
What did you say?
18.
18, right? 14 plus 4.
Okay, 18.
Okay. Don't confuse me. I'm confused enough with my work. So by 8:30, we are done with 18 units of work. So 51 minus 18, another challenge for you guys at this hour?
31.
33.
33. Ah, right? 33. So 33 is 51 minus 18 is 33, right?
Yes, yes.
Everyone agrees? Okay, good. Okay, this is 32 and a half. Okay. Aha. This is the burn chart for this team in this class. So when you do Scrum, and actually any agile process follows some kind of this metric, burn down chart. So there are no standards on how these charts should look like. So these charts are individual per sprint, per team, per software product, right? So this chart applies to us being here today doing this class, right? So with different classes, I had different pace because, the questions would come and I would, switch topics and go back and forth. So with you guys, what do you think? Can we finish our class by 11 and cover all the topics? Looking at the trend.
We should.
No, looking at the trend, right? This is, if you continue with that, we should finish. Okay, let's try. We should finish our class exactly by 10:50, right? So I cannot guarantee you that we'll finish by 10:50, but we'll try. At least this is the trend as of this moment, right? As of 8:30. And then we'll have these checks frequently, maybe like every half an hour, maybe an hour. And if I forget, please remind me. So you can see how this chart is built. When real life comes in and real team works on real projects. What?
They need a break.
Wait for 10 more minutes, okay? 15 more minutes. So let's finish the burn down charts. You may see very different charts in real life. So, and by looking at these charts, tell me what you think about these projects and what should or should not be done. So if this is your chart and this is the end of your sprint, right? And this is your maximum effort, the number of work units that you have. If you have a chart like this, what can you say about this chart? It's idle. Not too much work is being done. Why could this happen?
Could be very difficult task, and it needs to be lots of time spent on prioritizing something and thinking, brainstorming, and then it will be done, everything like in the quick time.
Not exactly, because you need to prioritize and pick your sprint backlog before you start your sprint, right? So that's the point. You need to know what you are developing so you don't spend time here in discussing what should go into the sprint. So you already have this feature set. So what else may be the reason?
Vacation.
What?
Vacation.
Vacation, yeah. Everyone went for vacation, so why did we even start the sprint? Good reason. What else?
Awaiting supplies needed.
Yeah, so you may not have the hardware delivered in time. You may not have the licenses, for whatever software you need coming in time. Or you may be just technically stuck, right? You try to develop something and it's not coming out the way you want it, which means if it does not satisfy the requirement, it's not considered to be delivered. So, which means we are not making any progress. However, if we see the burn chart like that, and those are days, right? So on a daily basis, we will have checkups, and I'll tell you how those checkups are done and how they are called, and they're called daily stand-ups. So every day, people would check on the progress with each other. So the Scrum team would meet every morning, same time, same place, and talk about the progress everyone is making. So if as a team, let's say 1 week passed, we have 4 week sprint, right? 1 week passed, and we have this trend. Should we get worried? Yes, we should. And what we should do next? No, we meet every day, right? So we meet anyway. So we should understand why we have this trend. It may be vacation, lack of hardware, software, we are stuck technologically.
Or change Scrum master.
Yeah, maybe the Scrum Master is not doing the right job, right? Or maybe everyone, development and testers, are working on a very complex task, and we cannot call it done because we are not done yet. But we trust each other. And if on a daily meeting people tell you, yes, we are progressing well, and as soon as we are done with this task, let's say on week 2, we'll be done with most of it, then it is still okay to have this trend. But again, this is where the honesty and trust and commitment and reliability come into play. This is why you cannot be successful in Agile unless you have these qualities in the team. Your team should be efficient. And again, if you are late for whatever reason with your tasks, communicate. If this is not the case, if we are stuck and technology we chose is not doing the right job, or the database we chose is not scaling well, or we, for example, we are supposed to support our product on Windows 8, which is now coming out, and nobody knows what the quality of that product will be, but still, we got the FC version of it, a beta version, and we tried, and it failed miserably, right, our software. That means we are not making good progress. What choices do we have?
Drop.
Do what?
Drop the product.
No, drop the product is not the right answer. However, you can drop your sprint. You can terminate your sprint. If you are stuck for objective reason, one more reason for us being stuck because the feature is too complex, and then at some point the product owner comes and says, you know what, this feature is no longer needed, right? In which case you can terminate your sprint. Sigh with the relief and say, oh, good, we were not successful anyway, and this feature is needed. So you can terminate your sprint, and if you terminate your sprint, you would know the reason, right? Because you are meeting daily, you know who is doing what. The team is, breathing on each other's necks, so you know why you terminated the sprint. What you need to do, of course you can go hysterical and cry and beat your head against the wall. It does not help. Instead, you reasonably analyze, you do a retrospective meeting, and we'll go through the details, how those meetings are done. You go through the retrospective analysis of what went wrong, what went right, and you just move forward to the next sprint, right? Hopefully applying the lessons you learned in the previous sprint, especially if it was abnormally terminated. So what if you see this burn down chart? What can you tell?
They had to redo something.
This chart does make sense. It means that the work was done and tested, and then we realized we did not develop what needed to be developed. So we had to redo stuff. At some point, this item went back to the work to be done bucket. From the done bucket, it moved to the to-do bucket. So which means, again, the work units went up, and then again down, and then we again realized, oops, we misdeveloped again, right? Something doesn't work properly, so it went back to the bucket. But as long as at the end you can arrive to your sprint completion, you are still okay. That's why it is very important when, at this moment of time when you have a checkup with the team, it is very important to analyze and understand why this is happening and whether or not we have the capacity to accommodate the changes that we are making, right? So what if you see the trend, like this is your sprint end, and your burn chart looks like this. What does it mean? Yeah, that means we finished early, right? And probably when we planned the effort, we overestimated. But again, it is better than the trend that looks like this, right? Because if your trend looks like this, you will not finish your sprint.
Can you add more features, or is it set
No.
in stone and set?
Sprint backlog is set in stone once you start it. If mid-flight, let's say at this point, the product owner, runs into the room and says, guys, we just had a customer forum. Forget all the features we were developing. We are doing a completely new product. You do not try to turn, the wheels around in the middle of the sprint. You drop the sprint, you terminate it. You have the backlog, product backlog outlined. You plan again, and you start the process all over again. Even if you want to add or remove a couple of features, you cannot do it within the sprint. That's the whole idea. Because if people will come to you and say, okay, now drop this, develop this, you've already started. So then the churn on development and tester side is too much, and people will not be able to deliver. So once the sprint is defined in scope, it's written on stone. You either do it or you don't do it. That's a different story. So yeah, and what happens if so if you have to drop or modify the feature set for the sprint mid-flight, you terminate your sprint and you start another sprint, which is a doable thing. And people, they do it in the field. I mean, this is what market requires. Why do you need to develop a feature which is no longer needed?
And if there's a Facebook story, when he was kind of broke the trust, and he was working on his project, the Mark Zuckerberg, and it is like they failed the whole project.
You mean the Facebook was called the failed project?
His Facebook, he developed the Facebook in the time when he actually said that he will develop for the Harvard students.
But it depends. It depends because so your question is that it was.
What should have they done?
Yeah.
Like when they actually, instead of trusting him, like they should actually drop this and find another engineer, or.
No, it all depends because remember the agile development, there is no standards on how you should behave. It is recommended that you trust your team, and if collectively the team decides not to continue with the sprint, then this development terminates, you start another sprint. You are talking about the entire project, whether it should be killed or not. That's a longer story because then you need to reevaluate all the product backlog and see if at least some of the features make sense. If you cannot deliver all of it, can you deliver some of it? If you can deliver some of it, should it be this team or that team? So it's a little different story.
And if you don't trust one person, should you actually let
Good
them
question.
go?
So the question is if during a couple of sprints or even one sprint, the person lied to the team, right? Should you take this person to the second sprint?
No.
It's a trick question. Should you?
It depends.
No. The answer is no. You should not take a person who broke the trust. You should not take, ideally, I mean, unless you don't have anyone else and you need, But what happens if person misbehaves, if he is dishonest, and because of that the entire team suffers because you cannot deliver your deliverables at the end? What is the point of keeping this person? You can probably monitor that person, closely and micromanage that guy or lady and finally get some results from this person, but the amount of effort you will spend on micromanaging that person will decrease the time you can spend on the actual development. So the point of having this person in the team, it's questionable. And in my experience, you break the trust, you're out of the team. So, before we start a sprint, we would have a sprint planning meeting. So in this sprint planning meeting, again, it should be held every 7 to 28 days. It means it depends on the duration of your sprint, right? If your sprint is 1 week, which is 7 calendar days, so 5 business days, then you would have this meeting every week. If your sprint is 4 weeks, then you would have those meetings, on a monthly basis. And what happens in the sprint planning meeting? You would define the scope of your sprint. So basically, you would need to define the sprint backlog for this particular sprint. And as I said, you would need to do this planning and estimating for the features. So we can understand how much work is likely to be done during the current sprint. And the limit for this meeting is 8 hours. So you should not, as a team, you should not spend, more than 8 hours for this planning. Even though, as you can imagine, if you have, too many features and all of them have highest priority, and the product owner wants all of them to be implemented, it may take a while to, have this discussion and dance with the post-its with the product owner, right? Because at some point, the product owner will align your features this way, and then you understand that logistically, for example, this sprint retrospective cannot be done unless everything else is done, right? Maybe we can do this retrospective analysis after we are done with all of the logistics and before we come to a conclusion of our class. What else is out of order? Let's see. Sprint review, sprint on site, daily stand-ups, okay, limitations. Yeah, again, the limitations are at the end, I think. Okay, these two are aligned well. You cannot do exercise overview before you did the exercise. So you guys will do the exercise and then we'll go through the review. Exercise demo, again, should be aligned with the exercise overview. Who? No. On the demo, you show the results of your exercise. So you cannot do it vice versa, right? And in the sprint, in the course of the sprint, you first do all of your development and testing, and then at the end of the sprint, you demo your work to yourself, to the same team. It's not like you have to demo to the outside world or to the customers. You have a demo for yourself to understand as a team whether you guys did what you wanted to do or you didn't. And again, the sprint planning meeting has a limit of 8 hours. Once the sprint is done, right, once all the work is done, all the development and testing for the features that we wanted to develop is done, we should have a review meeting. So what is done on that review meeting? We review the work that was completed and we present the completed work, and this is what the demo is about, right? So you have to demo the features to yourself to see whether you achieved your goals for the sprint, and this is very important, incomplete work cannot be demonstrated. So you cannot have a demo. This is the rule of Agile and the rule of Scrum. You cannot demonstrate incomplete work and say, yeah, I know we kind of messed up, but let's still consider this sprint successful, even if out of 5 features we did 4.5, right? This is not how sprint is done. You either do all of it or your sprint fails. And we'll talk about what to do with failed sprints and the remaining, sprint features which did not get developed a little later. So the limit for this sprint review meeting is 4 hours. So you should not spend more than 4 hours for the demo and the discussion. And you can also have the sprint retrospective. If demo took you 4 hours and you did not have time to do the retrospective analysis, you may allocate another like 2-3 hours to do the retrospective. So this is the meeting where all team members provide their opinions on the sprint that was just finished. And the goal of this is not to finger point to people who did not do very well or to the tasks that did not get completed. Instead, we need the purpose of this retrospective is to make these kind of lesson learned conclusions and to help making continuous process improvements, right, with the next sprint. And the 2 main questions which should be asked in the retrospective is what went well during the sprint, because if we did something well, if we were good at something, that should be acknowledged. And we should understand, okay, this is what we did well, we should do this again, right? So if the communication was good, we should keep this level of communication. If teamwork was good, we should do it. If, let's say, Saturday lunch spent with the team instead of your families helped you, do it again if you can. Different kind of things may help you. So this is the open meeting. Everyone talks their minds. And you should be able to communicate what you liked about the sprint. You will also have your chance to say what did not go very well in the sprint and what can be improved in the next sprint. So this is the place and time to tell, yeah, I did not like how we did that. I think we could improve and this way. And again, do not try to play blame game. It's not helpful in general. And it's not helpful in the Scrum environment or software development environment. Instead, just think about, analyze, and try to propose a solution. You can, of course, whine and complain, 3 hours long, but instead try to see how these things can be improved. If you cannot find the solution, on your own, then this is the team should help you. And usually, the sprint retrospective is a very open and friendly discussion across all team members, where you try to understand how you can improve things that went wrong in the previous sprint, so the next sprint is more successful, right? And again, you should limit yourself. The team should limit itself to 3 hours limit. Otherwise, the complaining part may take too long. And actually, Scrum Master is the guy who manages the time, because this time is your sprint time, right? These 3 hours is part of your sprint. If you only have 1 week, for example, which is 80 hours, these 3 hours is too much. If you have four weeks of sprint, you can accommodate 3 hours meeting. If it is only 1 week, you do not need 3 hours. You may be done in half an hour, because it's only 1 week. Everyone remembers what happened, during this week. So it's not like you have to spend 3 hours. If you can be done earlier, good. If not, try to finish this meeting in 3 hours. To help us understand the progress and to build the burn down chart, Scrum methodology assumes the team will have daily meetings. And those meetings are called stand-ups. They are held daily, same location, same time. It can be 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 2 p.m. There is no standards. The time should be convenient for all the team members. You may have team members who come to the office early and leave early. Some may come late and leave late. Try to find a spot where everyone can be there physically, co-located, and all team members should be present in that meeting, but only the core role speaks. The core roles may change, during the sprint. So let's say today, when you start your sprint, most of the speeches are done by the product owner, because he would tell you what the features are. Maybe you have some questions on how to develop or how to test. And then as we move forward, the product owner, unless he has some updates, may not have too much to say, but then the key speakers on those daily stand-ups would be the developers and testers. So we need to track the progress on how much development work is done, how much testing work is done. And this daily meeting, is time boxed to 15 minutes. And basically, if you have, and each team member will be asked these 3 questions. What is your progress since yesterday? Right? So you should be able to track yourself on a daily basis. And what are your plans for today? And are you blocked on something? And again, these are very, quick questions. And if you have only 5 people in a team and you have 15 minutes, right? 2 people are Scrum Master and the product owner. If they don't have too much to say, you have 2 developers, 1 tester, and you have 15 minutes. Each person has 5 minutes to talk. So 5 minutes is enough to briefly answer those questions. And of course, if you are blocked on something and you need to resolve that problem, that does not need to be discussed in this daily stand-up. You can take it offline with the Scrum Master and find the solution and unblock other people. They are not blocked. You are blocked, you will find your solution with the Scrum Master, but the other people will go back to their workspaces and continue working. And Scrum Master is supposed to resolve the impediments and remove the obstacles. And the resolution should occur outside of the daily Scrum itself, because otherwise your Scrum meetings may take like hours and hours. And you don't have that luxury when you have only 1 week, 2 weeks, or 4 weeks to deliver your increment of the product. Definition of done, or DoD, is another Scrum term that you guys should know. And what it means that your criteria of done should be defined before you start your sprint. So basically, once you have the sprint backlog defined, for each feature that you take into the sprint, you should define what done means for this particular feature. For example, if it is a particular web form, what considered to be done for this form? It should be implemented when you navigate to this URL. It should have all the UI controls implemented and functional. It should pass all your positive tests, and it should pass, for example, most of your negative tests, like empty fields should not accept, and boundary conditions should be in place. This is your definition of done. And again, there are no standards on what are the definitions of the done criteria for your project, because it is individual for each sprint team and for each project. But all team members should agree to this definition of done. And once you start the sprint, you cannot change this definition, because what people tend to do as the team moves, towards the end of the sprint, they realize, oops, we do not have time to develop all the fields. Like, let's say we are supposed to develop 20 text fields and we only develop 10. Can we change the definition of done and pretend we did the web form? You should not do this. This is not how Scrum is run. If you did not develop all the 20 fields and only delivered 10, your sprint fails. You will do better planning in your next sprint. But you should not change the definition of done mid-flight. And the definitions, the criteria for the done should be concrete and measurable. And for each product, actually sprint backlog item, the team should define the deliverables. And the term that people use in Scrum, sashimi, means it is a report that something is done. So when you look, the agile progress is frequently tracked through the post-its. For example, this is the items that we did already is our sashimi. So that means these items are done, right?
It's universal word, or you can
It's
create
typical for Scrum. It's typical for Scrum, just the slang that people use, sashimi. And again, sprint results. If at the end of your sprint you have a demo and you analyze the results of your sprint and your criteria of done is not met, it is not done. There are no half-done results, right? This is not the picture how it should look in your website. It is either done or not done. This one is not done, it's half done. So the result like this is not considered to be finished. There are no partially done sprints. Either you completed everything that you've planned for, right? And then your sprint succeeded, or you didn't complete everything that you planned for, and then your sprint failed. If your sprint succeeded, you can go out and celebrate, right? If your sprint failed, what should you do? What can you do? First of all, you hold the sprint review retrospective analysis, right, meeting. So you analyze what went wrong. Maybe you overestimate or underestimated the effort, or overestimated your team's capacity to deliver. Or maybe there was some, the hardware didn't work properly and there was a power outage for 2 days, right? Lightning struck the building and nobody could do anything and stuff. There are different reasons for why you could not meet the criteria of done. So you need to analyze the reasons. Of course, if it was weather or the hardware not, getting it in time. So if you already have your hardware and you do not expect, the shower season or rain season to start very soon, then those reasons, those obstacles you will not have in your next sprint. Then you should probably keep your estimates and planning the way you did in the first sprint. However, if you see that you underestimated, then you should plan more reasonably, right? You should be more careful in your estimates. And
Revised sprint then?
okay, so if your sprint succeeded, we are happy, right? If your sprint failed, good question. Can you do a revised sprint? Not really. Your sprint failed. Sprint is an instance of your development. It's gone. You cannot enter the same sprint again. Because what happens, let's say if for your sprint you had, oops. Okay. the sprint is your time box. And time box, let's say, is 4 weeks. We start on June 1st. We should be done on June 29th, roughly, right? And during this period, you should do features. Okay, let me take. You should do features 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, right? So at the end, on June 29th, you had a demo, and collectively, the team, you realized that you did this, and you did this, and you kind of did this, but it was not fully implemented, and you didn't have time to do this. So what happens? Let's say half of the feature got implemented, and half did not get implemented, right? So some of the subtasks of this feature were done, but some were not. So what happens? This is the success of your sprint. Your overall sprint failed, right? Because you did not complete everything you wanted to complete. So, but you completed at least this much. So what happens? Your sprint fails. You start planning for the next sprint. And when you start planning for the next sprint, you could take these remaining pieces, right? And start your next sprint from those pieces. But remember that you have the product backlog outlined by the product owner. So features, and let's say this is your product log. So features that did not, or sub-features that did not get implemented in the sprint, they do not automatically go to the next sprint. Instead, they go back to the product log. What happens then? The product owner, who knows the market, would need to reprioritize all the features all over again, because this exercise is done in the beginning of each and every iteration, in the beginning of each and every sprint. It may happen that by this time, these features used to matter a lot. It was the priority one, highest priority features. But now, 4 weeks later, let's say something changed and the market was already taken, or we developed something else. So there is some other product released by us or competitors. So these features do not they're no longer of that highest priority. Instead, we have a couple of more features that have higher priority. So what happens then for your next sprint, which will be July 1st, for example, to July 29th, you do not necessarily take these two. The product owner may ask you to do this, and maybe this, and maybe still finish this. But it all depends on overall priorities. Does it answer your question? What to do with the failed sprint? Yeah, you just replan all over again, and you start fresh.
Are things ever added to the product log?
Yes, this product log may change all the time.
That's variable.
Yeah, it's a variable. So, and the whole purpose of Agile is that you develop in sprints. And if something adds up to the list, right, for example, we are done with 2 sprints and we were thinking, yeah, we have only 1 sprint to go and we would be done with the product. And then the product owner comes and says, you know what, we also need to do this and this. Can you guys please finish? Your answer can be, yes, we can accommodate. You would need to validate the effort it takes to develop these 2 features. Or you can say, yes, we can, but we would need 1 more sprint. And that's fine. And once you're done with all the features, your product is considered completed. So you will not have any more sprints for this product, but you will start another one, hopefully, right? Unless your product is so successful, you can sell it well, and you will be purchased by some other company and get rich and retire. So you don't have to do any more sprints. It all depends on how things go with your product. So any questions, guys, on how sprints are run and why we do them, and what each team member is supposed to do? No. Okay. A couple of things to reiterate. Sometimes you may need to terminate sprints abnormally, and we went through some burn down charts, and I mentioned that the product owner can cancel a sprint if necessary, based on the input from the team. For example, if the technology that was chosen did not work well, or the market changed, right? We don't need this set of features any longer. So this can be, the sprint can be terminated. And management may wish to cancel a sprint if external circumstances negate the value of the sprint goal. There may be major shift in the company management and they decide not to develop this line of product any longer for whatever reason, right? They decided to explore a different market, and then they may just cancel this project. And as I mentioned, if the sprint is abnormally terminated, the next step is to conduct a new sprint planning meeting and move forward. And of course, you need to understand the reasons for the termination of the previous sprint. So if you look inside the sprint, the development and testing, of course, is done by the delivery team, which consists of development and QA, sometimes business analysts, and team does go through the daily Scrum meetings to report progress and report any blockages or impediments. Product owner monitors the progress and backlog priorities, and Scrum Master facilitates everything else. And believe me, with Scrum, your days are busy. And what happens frequently, because Scrum is all about teamwork, and once development is done with development effort, developers frequently help testers to test what has been developed. If you have any coding skills, if you can help development with coding, especially if this is HTML forms, if this is web-based application, you are welcome to help, providing the development agrees to your help. So what in Scrum teams, the division of responsibilities between developers and testers may be, not that strict as in the traditional development. So the borderline between, I'm developer, I only develop, I never test, that thing is gone in Scrum, in Agile development. Once development is done with the development tasks, they would go and help testers with testing tasks, and vice versa. If during development, developers realized, oh, we need this hardware, we need these cables and that cables, if Scrum Master is not available for any reason, you will not sit back on your hands. You will borrow some money from the management, run to Fry's Electronics, get the cables, and bring it back to development. So Scrum, as any Agile, is all about teamwork. So basically, each team member does whatever is needed. I can give you an example. I was working in a startup, and the application we were working on was the online payroll application. So we did not have, we didn't know it was called Agile at that time. That was like 6 years ago. But it was kind of Agile because it was very time boxed, and we had, I think bi-monthly kind of cycles. And we did not have Scrum Master role defined. We did not have the product owner. We had a CEO who was running all across, the globe with some ideas in his head and throwing the features, to us. But what we did have, we had a very good development team, and we had 2 testers, myself and my boss. And whenever we were stuck on something, unless development could help us, it was on our own, to go and find, the help that's needed. And at some point when development got stuck, and we realized that unless we help them, they will not accomplish their deliverables by the time where we needed it. So we stepped in, and we actually called all the tax agencies in each and every state, because in online payroll calculation system, you need to know the taxation rules for each and every state, each and every county. That's a nightmare, I can tell you. I went through this exercise. I was exhausted at the end because, realistically, the people who do taxation, who verify your taxes, or, the IRS guy, IRS tax, calculation is much simpler than the state-based calculations, because each state has its own regulations. Some states are simple, but some states, oh boy, they're so complex. And we would call those agencies, local agencies, like some counties and some cities had very sophisticated local tax calculations rules. If nobody is there to find that for development, if development does it, they will be late with their tasks, right? So then QA would step in and call the agencies. That's what we did. And pull the necessary documents and we would find the websites with the taxation rules and provide all this information to development so they can develop. In a kind of exchange, when the code was ready, they helped us with testing effort. So this is the true teamwork, and this is what many of Agile teams do, and this is what is traditionally being done in Scrum development. So people help each other, of course, you should still keep your integrity as testers. You should not compromise on the quality. If your development is your body, if you drink coffee every time, like at 6 a.m. in the morning, it doesn't mean you should not validate your body's work, right? Please wear QA hats and still keep the usability of the product in mind and functionality of the product in mind. You should still do your job, but please help others whenever you can. And other people will help you as well. This is how sprint can look at a glance. So usually people bucketize. This is the product backlog, which is called to do, right? This is the list of all the items to do, and some tasks are split into subtasks, and people put their notes. If there is something they want to mention, they just go and put the post-it on the board. Doing this column is your current sprint. This is what you are doing in this sprint. And this is what is done. This is your sashimi, kind of. And yeah, so all the items which are completed and accomplished go here. And usually until the project is done, until you are done with all your features, this board is kept intact. So you can go to this board and check the status at any point. You can see what was already developed, and usually they put people names and the effort it took, so you can reasonably plan your next iterations. And this is the daily stand-up, I guess, in Scrum meetings. So, this is a legitimate question. So basically, if you have multiple teams, right, and you're doing multiple Scrums in different teams, what people do, they call it sometimes Scrum of Scrums. So basically, you have each team go through its own set of iterations or sprints, right? So you have Scrum process applied to this particular set of features. And remember the picture that I drew in the beginning? So you would have, okay, let me see. Let's say we had 4 teams, right? So this team was developing this set of features, and this team would develop this set of features, and this team would develop this, and this team would develop something else. So at the end, we all should integrate, right? This is what didn't happen because we did not have time, because of course I didn't plan for it, right? I'm to blame. But anyway, so at some point, all these, if this is one product, just different feature sets, should integrate. And this is where all the parts and pieces come together. But Scrum Masters, at each and every given point of time, they should coordinate horizontally. And there is usually, there may be one master guy who owns all this project. And he may run across all the teams and coordinate, but more frequently he would have daily meetings with Scrum Masters only to see how the projects are doing, how individual features are doing, and that will make everyone's lives easier. Instead of one person chasing like 36 people around, right? This is what we have in this room. So let's analyze our sprint. Question number 1, did we make the sprint?
Yes.
Yes.
Really?
With overtime.
With overtime.
Yeah.
No, guys, of course, this is fun exercise, and I hope this is learning exercise for you also. In my opinion, we did not make the sprint.
90% completed. It's not done.
You are either done or not done,
Okay,
right?
so we can start in next sprint.
Yeah, so we can start next sprint, and
Finished.
yeah. And one Scrum, by the way, was more or less, close to completion, right? So there was a couple of yeah. So what went well during sprint?
Teamwork.
Teamwork,
Communication.
communication. What
Our
else?
Scrum manager
Design.
left us.
And you think this is an advantage for your team? Yeah. So what else went well?
Drawing.
Drawing, right? You had a chance to exercise your skills. And by the way, during sprints and during Scrum and Agile development, you do have more chances to develop yourself. on a personal aspect of your work, right? You do have chances to develop qualities in you that you probably never suspected you had, right? So you may pick up some of the white box testing skills if you need to look at the code and fix the HTML errors, for example. Or you may be able to move more into Scrum Master and then project management role. I mean, you never know where you will find your opportunities, but Scrum does prompt you to develop personal qualities in you. What went not so well? Where did we? What?
Time management.
Time management sucked. Okay, what else?
Communication.
Communication was not clear. Okay.
Graphics design.
Graphics design suffered. Okay.
Functionality.
Yeah. Yeah. Functionality was not well defined.
Features were not well defined.
Features were not well defined. We did not have time to plan for features, right? And of course, we did not plan for effort, right? Because if you planned for effort, if I asked you guys to project your effort, we would spend like extra 10 minutes, which we do not have in today's class. This is how sprint review and sprint retrospective meetings usually go. So people do say what they liked first, right? You should start with the positive always. And then you look at what went wrong, and then you analyze and say, okay, in the next sprint, we should do this and this and that, and we should not do this and this and that. And then you try to apply what you've concluded, right? Few things to mention to you guys. As I told you, Scrum is not always successful. There may be cases where the agile development and Scrum in particular may fail. So, and based on industry's experience, if your team is not committed enough, or if your team is not reliable, right? If you cannot trust your people, if people say I will do it and they never do it, then you cannot be successful with Scrum. If you provide incorrect time and work estimates, you cannot be very successful with your Scrum development, because your sprints will always be off. If you cannot get everyone on planning and daily meetings, you are likely to fail. You have to track your progress on a daily basis. And talking about tracking, I have a confession to make to you guys. I miscalculated the work effort in the beginning, so it was not 51 work units, as was pointed out. It was 61 work units, which means, and then I recalculated everything. So ignore the red line. Green line is our burn down chart, right? So we started with 61, and this is how it went. So the time is now 10:50, and we are done with we're still in the process of limitations. We did the exercise, which is 25. We did the overview, and we did the demo. We are down to only 2 units of work, right? Which means at 10:50, we are at 2 units of work. Will we make the sprint as a team? I hope so. No, by 11, we still have 10 minutes left, right? And 2 units of work. Yeah. So, so the green line is our actual burn down chart. So, continuing to why Scrums can fail. If people provide you wrong estimates, then yes, you cannot plan your sprints accurately and precisely. You can have, yes, you can have bad Scrum Masters or product owners. And if you have those, what should you do?
Replace.
Sack them.
Yeah, you can and you should replace these people. It doesn't mean those people can no longer contribute. It doesn't mean you should fire them. You may find that some people who wanted to be Scrum Masters are actually very good product owners, or vice versa, right? Your product owner has leadership capabilities. He can be, Scrum Master, but he does or she does not know the market very well. So you can, delegate this person to be a Scrum Master in the next sprint. You can find some developers, so QA people, worker bees, to be very good Scrum Masters. Leadership, because if a person has leadership qualities he or she may lead naturally, right? Those are natural Scrum Masters. Or you can, ask those people to leave the team, because if the person who is in your team cannot be a Scrum Master, cannot be the product owner, cannot develop, and cannot test, why do you need this person, right? So that's why these teams are self-formed. If collectively the group of people does not feel well about a particular person, nothing personal, this person, she or he, can perfectly do well in some other group, or maybe in some other project. The person may work fine in the large group, in the traditional development. It just, this person may not be fit for your team. And there is nothing wrong about this. This is just how life goes and how agile development goes. If team does not have enough authority and decision-making skills, you will not succeed with Scrum. In Scrum, you have to be fast, right? Because all sprints go like this 45 minutes exercise. Like 4 weeks, you should be done. 4 weeks, you should be done. And this will not be the paper project. It will be the real website that you need to develop and deliver and test and make sure the quality is adequate. And some teams cannot learn from the past mistakes, and they go into a state of denial. And let's say one sprint failed because we estimated the effort, and we start the next sprint with the same, overestimated, numbers, and we fail it again. And we do not want to recognize that that was the, misplanned, estimates. We continue doing the same thing over and over again, and then the sprints will continue to fail. If this is happening, then this team should not do agile. It should not do sprints. It's probably, this team probably, there are choices. This team can choose to do the traditional development, or they may just change the Scrum Master and see if that makes any difference, right? Because there should be someone who will lead the analysis, the retrospective of the sprint, to see how we can improve and eventually, go into the sprint schedule. And as you can understand probably from the exercise, if you have large teams of people, it's very challenging to do Scrum, because especially if your teams are geographically distributed, right? So see, we spent 45 minutes, you guys did not finish everything you wanted to do, and you were sitting next to each other. Imagine you need to do a real project in real life, and as I mentioned, for each answer to your question, you need to wait for a day or two, at least overnight, so people on the other end of the globe could respond to your requests. So it is very challenging, and people find it not working well if you have distributed teams, even though, as I mentioned, there may be exceptions. If you're willing to sacrifice your schedule and change and adjust your schedule respectively, you can still do successful Scrum. Large teams and huge features sometimes cannot be broken down just because of the feature complexity. So if the project is complex, you may try splitting it into several, Scrum groups and see if you can do this model. But sometimes logically, you cannot split the code. It's risky. The parts need to be integrated early, and then you should develop everything simultaneously. And if you need 20 developers to develop a feature, you cannot do Scrum. In our company, we are moving into agile development direction. But we have, for example, products where the development team is 200 people and the test team is like 150 people. So it is not always easy to, you cannot have 11 Scrum teams, right? Or even more. It's like 20-something Scrum teams. It just doesn't work. You spend too much time in coordinating. So there are some projects where by the project nature, you cannot do agile and you have to follow with the traditional development methodology. And another point, some applications require you to keep audit trail on everything. If you develop applications in the military field, or medical or biomedical or pharmaceutical research, this is where you cannot not have documentation. You have to have documentation. You have to have the process in place. You have, because the customers that use your application will be audited most likely by FDA for medical devices, by military, by government for the military stuff, right? So you cannot just develop Agile. You have to have paper trail for everything you are doing. So there are some limitations from that side as well. So the conclusion for today's class is that Scrum is a doable and viable form of software development. And lately, in the last few years, I see more and more companies doing Agile just because of its benefits of incrementally delivering the potentially shippable product. It is very convenient. Doing Scrum does not require special knowledge, right? You just need to have a good teamwork. And this can be found or developed within the team. So you do not have to go through any official or special training. And following Scrum helps you to produce stable product increments in short periods of time. And everyone in the team is accountable for the success or failure. And last in the sequence, but not the last in the importance, it develops great team spirit. I've been through that, and I can tell you it does work. And it does make you feel good about what you're doing. I'm not saying you should do Agile only for that. But despite of all the challenges of Agile, it does have its benefits. And product-wise and feature-wise and market-wise, business-wise, plus on the personal front, it helps you develop very good team spirit. Any questions, guys, on what we've covered? Okay, I have one more thing to tell you. So as you guys have been a very good team to me. So as a small token of my appreciation to you, before you leave, please take one chocolate because it's 11 p.m. and even 11:02. Oh, no, exactly 11. OK. And you've been very patient with me. Thank you so much. I hope you will remember what Agile is, what Scrum is. And I wish you best of luck on the interviews. I highly recommend that you guys Google for Agile development methodology. Google for Scrum. Wikipedia has a very good and detailed explanation of what Scrum is. In case, because I have your emails, right? So I will email you the presentation. So, but in case you want more information, you can always Google, and you have endless resources on the internet. Just don't get confused because like Scrum uses one terminology. Lean development uses a little different terminology. It is all about time boxing, delivering potentially shippable product in short increments, and having controlled quality process in shorter increments. That's what Agile is about.